Hello everyone, it's Krish here again. Hope you guys doing well. So, step by step, video by video, we are hitting the end. Don't worry, we have a few more videos to go. I promise you that I'm going to take you through everything about the microservices. So I'm still with that promise, but we usually covered I think 17 videos right now. So few more to go. Okay, so last video we discussed about discovery service and how discovery service interact with all other services, right? But in this video we learn there is a problem. The problem is though we link with the through discovery service, when you invoke three services, if one service is out, then your entire request is failed. That should not happen with the microservice because resilience is must. Whatever available, users should be able to see that if there is a business validation and business importance of that request. Okay, before we start, if you are not subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe right now because there are more interesting things to come. So subscribe right now and also share this video with people who are interested in this type of topic and these subjects. And also, as I said last video, a lot of people ask me how they can support to this channel. So you have a link in this description. You can go to that link and you can support to the channel if you want to. And it is not something must. If you get something, yes, if you can contribute, go ahead and contribute to that link. So in that will give some benefit and helps to me to do more and more videos, because though you see 30 minutes video, I usually spend 4 to 6 hours for do one video, because from the planning, doing samples, recording, editing and everything, because I'm trying to create quality content as much as I can. Okay, so today what we are going to do, how we finished last video was we had a problem from the rent service. We talked to customer service and the vehicle service. Customer service was outage, so the entire request was failed. We need to find a solution for this. The solution is circuit breaker. If you want to know more detail about circuit breaker, so there is a other playlist in this channel called microservices, right? So this playlist is microservice practical. There is other playlist called microservices. In that playlist, I think there are 9 to 10 videos. We totally discuss about theories. So there is one video on that playlist explain what the circuit breaker pattern and how that circuit breaker pattern works. Right now, we are focusing on the practical. Okay, if I make it simple, this is how it works. If you consider how your electricity work on your home, if there is something wrong with your electrical system, there is something called breaker. So that breaker goes off. When the breaker goes off, from there onwards, so the electrical line get cut off from that, so you don't get the supply to beyond that breaker. So that is why we do that, to protect our circuits, protect our instruments, right? So we do the same thing for microservices. If I explain this very simple, this is how it works. Let's get an example. You talk to rent service gets some payload, and using that payload, rent service is going to talk to customer service as well as vehicle service. For some reason, now customer service is not there, right? So now what this will do is, this will not go to customer service anymore. Instead of that, if you configure to give the default response or some fallback mechanism, it will follow that and go to the rent service and give the required response back to the consumer. In that way, even though one service is out, you don't get the catastrophic failure to entire your service cloud. For example, where we can use this, let's say you do video streaming, right? So let's say sometime like you consumer asking 1080p videos or 4K videos, right? So for some reason your 4K service is out or is busy, it cannot take any more requests. So if you implement this type of pattern, so it won't go to the 4K service until it come back to online with the expected speed and everything, expected performance. It go back to its backup plan, maybe 1080p, maybe 780, so whatever. So it's a resilience. You won't die, but you are trying to sustain as much as you can. Okay, in our example, let's see how we can do this. So if you go back to our project, so this is we left last time, right? So here, one more thing, I forgot to tell you that. So in our case, we have three services involved, right? Rent service, that is the way you send the request, and the it involved to vehicle service and the customer service. We need to protect rent service with the circuit breaker, right? Because that is a calling service, right? So you don't put the circuit breaker until the service is being called, right? What you need to put the circuit breaker or the protection into the service what you used to call the caller service, right? So in our case, that's a rent service. So what we need to do is we need to go back to rent service POM file. So we need to add one more dependency, which is Hystrix, right? So Spring Framework Cloud, Spring Cloud Starter Netflix Hystrix. So that is the dependency we need to add in order to get this use, right? So let's go to Maven and tell to import that. Okay, and now we need to go back to our rent service application. We need to put one more annotation, which is enable circuit breaker. Okay, so we need to tell service, I'm going to protect you with the circuit breaker. Again, keep in mind, you don't put the circuit breaker to the services being called. Okay, right. So now there are two ways you can implement this, right? One way you can go with a simple annotation, but that annotation has a limit. Probably it's a bug, maybe they are going to fix in the future versions, right? So I'm going to demonstrate that too, because that's the easiest way to do it. But most people, I have seen the Stack Overflow and everywhere, people struggle with to use the annotation with the various problems. Some people say to make a method is a public, some people say do this and that, but none of those are working. The reason is they use the Spring AOP. There is some the problem with that code. I went through that code and I understand there's a problem with that code, but looks like it didn't fixed, right? So here's a limitation. You can easily put a annotation with the circuit breaker, right? And I mean use as a history command annotation, and you can give the fallback method. But that only work if that is the first method being called into your service. For example, here from the controller invoke this one. Okay, the control invoke this one, the find detail response, right? So and there we call this method get customer, but this is the real method we send the request to the customer service, right? So this is the one we need to protect with the circuit breaker, but you cannot put the annotation here, right? If you put the annotation history command annotation here, this won't work, right? You can give the fallback method here, but doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't work, right? If you want to get this work, what you need to do is you need to put the put it here, right? So this is little I mean it's really hard to reproduce. I don't want to change my code to demonstrate that, so I'm going to give some different response with this. So what you need to do is you can put the history command, right? So you can give the fallback method. The fallback method you can give any name, let's say find detail response fallback, right? This method can be anything, but you need to make sure this follow the same signature as this one. Okay, so that's the only rule. Okay, and but name is should be the name what you give here. Okay, and this one, right? So you can mark this return. I'm going to give new detail response, right? Since to get this object I need to do so many refactoring to this code, but that is not worth to do. So I'm going to do default one, new rent, right, and new customer and new vehicle. Okay, so that's what I'm doing for now because this is not worth to do. So for here what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one, right, and I'm going to call this inline. Okay, so I'm going to call customer is this, right? So this one is id. Okay, so that's what I told you. So if you want to get this annotation work, you need to make sure that is the first method which being called from the controller, right? Otherwise it won't work. Okay, so now we are safe. Okay, I think I didn't miss anything. So let's see, let's start the discovery dashboard first. Okay, and then let's start the one by one. Run service, vehicle service, and customer service. Right, so if you go back here, you can see now customer service is still not up. Okay, so now you can see all the services are running, right? So now if you send this request, so you will see you get this empty response, right? So we'll see why it directly hit to the fallback method. Okay, maybe it's still not registered. Okay, let's try one more time. Okay, so now we got information, right? So now if we stop customer service again, right, let's say stop the customer service application, right? So you will see this work. This work mean we return the default response from everywhere. So I mean that's why everything comes as a null. So the limitation is you only can use the annotation if this is the method which called as a first method in the service class, right? But if you have to use this in the inner method, this doesn't work. So I think I don't recommend to use this way because this has so many limitation and you are not in a full control, right? So you can control everything. So this is should not use. So let me to revert it back. So I'm not using this one, okay, and I'm going to remove this. So now we have our original as right. Okay, so now we have everything back to normal. Okay, so now everything is working. So now so we learned this approach is not does not work, right? How we can do that? So the right ways, right, practice is to do it. So implement this Hystrix command on your own, right? So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to create a new package called Hystrix. Okay, and here, for example, for vehicle, I'm going to create a new class called vehicle command. Vehicle command. Okay, so this vehicle command extends from, right? So vehicle command extends from Hystrix commands, right? The type is vehicle. Sorry, type is vehicle. Okay, so since this abstract class and we are implementing the concrete class, we need to implement the run method here, right? I'm going to talk about that later. For this one, now I'm going to invoke my endpoint from here, right? So for that, I need to create a REST template, right? So REST template, and also I need my vehicle ID, right? So int vehicle ID. Okay, for this one I'm going to use a constructor public vehicle command. So I need two parameters. One is I need a REST template and also I need vehicle ID, and this dot REST template equal REST template, and this dot vehicle ID equal vehicle ID. Okay, so I'm setting these two. Okay, and also so now it says there is no default constructor, right? So we need to invoke the default constructor from here because there is no default constructor on that abstract method. So super, I'm going to use I'm going to hard code this, right? So Hystrix group key dot factory dot ASCII I'm going to use as a default. So I'm going to give a default key to default as a key to history group, right? So we need to put the request into the group because this is going to create multiple threads and everything. So this is very simple, right? So vehicle command, I'm going to use it the vehicle, the vehicle type implement using a vehicle history command abstract class. So that's I'm done. So when I come back to here, my service implementation, right? So here before I get the vehicle, okay, I need to get this. I need to comment it here and I go back to my vehicle command, okay, and here run I'm going to return this one, okay. So I'm going to implement like this, okay. So if it's simple, to make it simple, I'm implementing Hystrix command, I'm extending the Hystrix command class. So this is the it's abstract class, right? So you can check the source code if later if you want. So I'm going to extend that and I'm going to implement my own one, and for that I'm going to pass my REST template and my vehicle ID, and I'm going to use those two and to invoke in the run method, okay. So now what I'm going to do in the REST service IMPL, here I'm going to create object from my vehicle command equal new vehicle command, right? I need to pass my REST template and this vehicle ID, okay. And what I'm going to return here, vehicle command dot execute, okay. So that's it. It's very simple implementation, right? So I'm going to run this. I did not change anything on the customer service, so I don't want to run that one, but I just need to run this one, okay. So now we don't use any annotation here, okay. So we'll see how it works. So you go back here. Oh, I forgot one thing. I forgot to implement the default method, right? So what I'm going to do is I come back here, my vehicle command, right? So I can override one more method. If you go back here to I can override one more method. I forgot that one to get the fallback, right? So I'm going to return new vehicle, okay. So that's my fallback. If in case my vehicle service is not working, I need to return empty vehicle, right? Okay, cool. So now you go back here, everything is registered. So I go back here and I'm going to invoke this, right? So now everything is fine, it's working nicely, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut down my vehicle service, okay. So I go back here and I shut down my vehicle service. No vehicle service are running right now, okay. So now if you go back here, you can see vehicle object comes as empty. Why? Because it hit to the fallback method, right? I did not put any sysout or something. So if you put the sysout, you will see it hit to the fallback method, right? So now you can see this one. So now what I'm going to do is let's put that also hit on fallback, okay. So anyway, I'm going to run my vehicle service again. It take little while to register, but then it will automatically pick up, okay. Okay, so now it worked, right? So now it worked. So it picked it back. So now this is done. Like this is what you need to do, right? So you implement the separate command extending from the Hystrix and get it work. But the only disadvantage here, the responsibility, kind of a best practice you are violating, right? For example, for the it's not exactly wrong, but it's little ugly. Because if you need to call 5 or 6 different services, you need to implement this type of command in a 6 for like vehicle command, customer command, invoice command, report command, like that. So as long as you need to protect something from a circuit breaker, you need to implement the command separately. That's not wrong, That's a way to do it, because then you everything put into a separate class, then that class is responsible to get this done, right? But there's other way to do that, right? Rather than implementing all those commands one by one, there's other way to do that. So what you can do is you can implement the common history command. I'll show you how to do that, right? So common Hystrix command, right? So again, this is that the what we did is not wrong, but this is one other way to do that, okay? And extends from Hystrix command. So this is we use the generics here. Why? Because we don't know what the class would be. This can use for any type of class, right? So since this is a very generic, we need to get the supplier object for this, right? Supplier. So this is also same type. So this is to execute, and other supplier to fallback, right? And here I need to create a separate constructors, how you can use. One is probably you can just pass the group name. You don't need to set any specific configuration. In case if you need to set a specific configuration, you can pass the config object. Likewise, you can do that. So I am going to write in a little generic way, but I am going to use only one, right? So I am going to use a public, right? Common history command, right? I am going to get a string group here and supplier execute, okay? And for this one, I'm going to call the super, same thing what we did same thing what we did last time, dot factory dot as key. I'm going to pass whatever passing here. It's a group, and this dot execute equal execute. Okay, so this is the one constructor I'm using. The other one, I'm instead of config, I'm going to let it to use the config, right? Instead of the group, I'm going to let it to use the config, right? So how I can do that? I'm going to get the setter here, right, as a config, and in that case you can just directly pass the config into the super class, and that's it, okay? So probably you need to pass the separate fallback interface also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these two and add the fallback, right? So I'm going to add other supplier to give the fallback, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing here, okay? So in that case, this dot fallback is fallback, and this dot fallback is fallback, okay? So still we did not implement, still this my class is concrete class, so I need to implement the run method. The run method, I don't know what to invoke, because this is going to call with different type of classes. So I'm going to write this in a generic way, then execute dot get, okay? And also I need to implement the fallback method. Okay, so here what I'm going to use is I'm going to little bit careful here. If fallback is null, let's say not null, return fallback dot get, but otherwise get the super fallback, okay? So this is it, okay? Here let me to explain this little bit. So what we have done is we use the supplier here and the execute and the fallback, right? So we implement the constructors the way we need, right? And then the run, right? We don't need all these constructors, but I just implement to show you what are the different ways we can do that, right? So let's protect the customer service with this one, Okay, so you go back here. So in that case, you don't need to implement one by one commands here. You don't need this the vehicle command, but I'm going to delete that because you can refer this in example. So but I'm going to protect the customer service in this new method, right? So what I can do here, I can create a common history command, but here this time I'm going to get the customer, right? Customer history command equal new customer history command. So I'm going to use the group method as we did last time, default, and I'm going to use lambda here, and for this one I'm going to return this one, rest template, this one. Okay, so I'm going to just copy and paste it here. Okay, and here I'm going to return new customer. Okay, I'm going to do the same technique here, right? So that's all, and from here now I don't need these two, right? So I'm going to use customer, I'm going to create a future object, right? Future customer future equal this one, customer history command dot q, right? And customer future dot get. Okay, so that's what I'm going to return. Okay, so this little bit I use Java 8, right? If you're not familiar with the Java 8, I think probably you won't understand that, but in case if you don't understand, you have the option. Okay, so now I need to return these exceptions, right? I'm not going to handle this right now. Okay, and from here, and probably I need to throw this from the controller as well. Okay, so if I go to control, yes, I need to throw this from the controller as well. Okay, so now I implemented Hystrix command circuit breaker pattern in two different ways, right? Actually three different ways. One is use the Hystrix command annotation, right, which is not encouraged to use. That's not good to use because that has so many problems. And the second way, to create a separate command for each circuit protection you are going to make. The third way is going to use the common Hystrix command. So in that case, you can dynamically dynamically use this for any protection you want to make. So if you think that's not readable, that's not easy to understand, you can go with the second option. But if you think second option is so painful, you need to do this for each and every protection you want to make, you can go with the common Hystrix command. It's completely up to you what to use. Okay, right. So now I'm going to start my vehicle service again. I think yes. I haven't done any changes for that, but it's okay. Okay, I restart that, and rent service, and if the customer service is already running, I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to use the customer service as well. Okay, so why I stop that? Because customer service is configured to use multiple instances. So now everything is work fine. So now this time you can see the one services came out because that's been registered. Probably other one will register in a while, right? So, and this has nothing to do with the how you implemented, right? And this is just completely random. Okay, so now both services are registered and running. So now what I'm going to do is, now I'm going to shut down vehicle service. Okay, so now vehicle service is not there. So now you will see the vehicle service come with the empty response, and the customer service and the rent service is working, right? So now in the last video you saw when the one service is down, entire response is failed. Now this time, even the one service is down, other responses are working, right? Other responses, you can get other responses. It completely depends on your business scenario, by the way, but in this case we need it, right? So I'm going to put vehicle service back running. So one more thing I need to tell you, For example, in this constructor, we implemented a setter here, right? So how this works is, so you can implement Hystrix command, right? Common Hystrix command here if you're interested, right? And you can do all the configuration. I'm not going to implement right now. You can do the configuration. What you can do is you can put the configuration into your property file or YAML file, and you can read those configuration from here, and you can create your configuration class from the setter type. So then you can auto wire that setter from the class, and you can inject into this configuration, right? There you can configure these timeouts, how long it should wait, what is the caching intervals, and everything you expect to configure with the Hystrix. So I just implement the sample Hystrix command just to demonstrate this, right? So you can see here I put this, I auto wire the environment. I put the configuration annotation to make sure this is processed when the startup, right? This type of properties you can read from the environment, right? So Hystrix timeout, right? And then when you pass this here, right, so you can auto wire this, right? For example, so here, so you can come back and auto wire here Hystrix command dot setter, right? So you can auto wire this, okay? So you can auto wire this, and then instead of the right, so you can auto wire this, and instead of passing default here, you can pass setter, right? So like that, right? In that case, those configuration is going to apply to your Hystrix command. So you can, I didn't put this configuration, so but so I use two configurations here, right? So I use the group ID here as a run cloud, and the Hystrix timeouts, and set the value to if the value is null, set to the 500. So likewise, you can do your own configuration, right? So we learn circuit breaker pattern well in detail with all the aspects. Then if you are not subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe, and like this video, and comment what you feel and what you think about this, and also share the video in your social media, and introduce this channel to the friends you know, right? So we have more than 5,000 subscribers now, so I'm going to add new and more content, and also the microservices. So we can talk about the Dockers, AWS, DevOps, and so many other things to talk, and so many other technical areas also. So stay tuned, see you again, make sure subscribe, and if you want to support, use the below link, and until we meet again, stay safe, take care.